Pokemon Infinite Fusion. You know, the game where you take your cute, adorable pet and fuse them into something that's definitely illegal. Yeah, you know the one. You also probably know that the whole point of the game is to fuse as many Pokemon as possible, hence the infinite. But what if the exact opposite was done? Instead of having a full orgy of 6 fusions, we only had one in this lonely fap session of a party, and used it to take over all of Kanto. Anyway, these are my rules. No items in battle, I can catch one Pokemon per round, and if they faint, they die. Pretty standard rules for any challenge. Well, here's where things get a little complicated. As soon as I can, I have to have at least one fusion available on my team at all times. If the fusion faints, then I unfuse, kill one of them off, and I find a replacement. Unfusing is only allowed to let something die or when absolutely necessary. So if I need an HM but my fusion can't learn it, we have to make a quick sacrifice to Arceus, get someone who can, and go to the next gym. And I can't hit level 100. If I miss anything or you're confused, just watch till the end, you'll be fine. Our journey starts off like any good story does. A boy, his rival, and an elderly man who ran out of meds. Don't believe me? Let's see what he gives us. Oh, a fairy. Next we have an actual dragon, and a bipedal crocodile. Just to round things out, can you guess which one I chose? Krokorok, because I like it more than the other two. Now, at first glance, I know this looks like a bad idea. Choosing the dark brown type against a fusion with fairy and flying, while also giving it pseudo-legendary stats later in his bloodline, but I have an idea. Hit hard.
That sounds like something my dad would say.
And pray that it doesn't have Dragon Rage. Luckily, when Kirby swallows his new friends, he not only spit out the worst fusion, but this version was also weaker in both stats and typing. Of course, none of that matters because Dragon Rage would decimate my current 22 HP. But in my second stroke of luck, I get a crit and Kirby throws with Wrath. Leaving to find a staircase to eat out his frustration, I followed right behind him, picked up his grandfather's prescription, traded some drugs for balls, and I jumped into the tall grass for the first encounter. Hoping for something cool, we're immediately faced with the tentacle. This was perfect. A water and ground type with either Intimidate or Clear Body was huge. I caught it and ran to the PC, only to be disappointed like a kid on Christmas morning, checking his stocking only to find that Santa left him a pipe bomb. No custom sprite, and the typings I have to choose between water and dark or poison and ground. To be fair, I'm being very dramatic, especially when you consider that having a water type with Intimidate for Brock's gym basically guarantees us the win. I get a free Jinx from the store, which might count as human trafficking when Jinx's Pokédex entry has it as the human-shaped Pokemon. How Jinx can't catch a break is beyond me, but subscribe because maybe we'll figure it out one day. On our way to Pewter, I caught Napoleon, Dodrio, and Bonsly. Despite our lack of water moves, I got tired of grinding and decided to throw Tenderrock into the wind. Brock tells us about his trusty frying pan, and we get into battle. The only move I have that's effective against rock types is Sand Tomb, which wouldn't affect his GOG. Thankfully, Bite sweeps his whole team. That was a lot easier than I thought it would be. Being the rock-hard individual he is, Brock didn't give up, and then tried his luck with Nurse Joy, only to go 0-2 in life. In Mount Moon, we find Giovanni, forcing Pokemon to breed. We send Team Rocket blasting off again. We enter Misty's bathhouse anticipating our next gym badge. I mean, they're just water types. If I dumped a fish tank out, I'd win. For her Jigglydean, I used the same strategy I did for Brock, and spammed Bite. Mixed with some luck, we're able to drown it. Knowing her Ardew has at least one grass type move, I make sure to lead with Supersonic, and after an Acid Spray, it hits itself in confusion, and I win game 2. Leaving Misty's gym, I was on a moral high after getting 2 consecutive gym badges. And here comes Kirby, who wants to fuck up my day. Either God didn't get my messages or he didn't care, because the rival's Togekiss/Dragonair now has Dragon Rage. I try to go for a Supersonic, it misses. I get a second chance, it misses again. Then Tenterot gets paralyzed and dies. I wake up at the Poke Center and I'm faced with a new problem. My options, being few and far between, left me with Jinx, forcing me to dance on that line of pet and illegal. But it has Ice and Fairy type moves, so for my current situation, it was perfect. Besides almost dying to my rival's first Pokemon, it was able to one-shot their biggest threat. We saved a confused furry and made our way to the next gym. Upon my arrival, I not only rescued a drowning cat, but caught a Gardevoir in Diglett Cave. For anyone who got excited at the thought of fusing the over-sexualized fairy type, remember, it has to stay in the PC until I need it. Boarding the SS Sand, we run into Kirby, who wants to play, so I powder snow his whole team and give Frostbite to his Raticate. We get cut from a diseased old man, and I suddenly find myself in the gym. Since my Genrock was overleveled, I went in without a second thought, and was quickly spotted by an elderly man that one-shot me. Following the events of a Machop hugging my Jinx too hard, I checked the livestock in the PC. I wanted something that could of course beat Lieutenant Surge, but also Erica because she was right around the corner. My first thought would naturally be Infernape, but fusing it with Krokorok would only give me Dark and Fire and Fighting and Ground. Unfortunately, that's how most of the fusions go. When fusing dual types, you can't pick what they get, so it might not be worth it, especially when you have a better option in Dodrio. Even though it has the defense of an infant, it's fast and it can hit hard. Not to mention, ground and flying is an incredible typing, so I couldn't lose even if I wanted to. Also, I found a shiny. Most would take it as a blessing from God, but really? I've spent hours on this game recently, and the first shiny I get is a red foreskin over a caterpillar that could only get hard? No thanks, pervert. Surge tells us how much he loves our country, and we get into it. Knowing none of his Pokemon could do much of any damage to us, I felt pretty good going in. Cocodrio buries his Voltabee before eating it. And now we have Moxie. For whatever reason, after fusing the same Pokemon twice, it gives me its other ability. This works in our favor because in this situation, Moxie is a lot better than Intimidate. I can't switch, so Intimidate only works on the first Pokemon, and if the opponent copies it, then we lose attack. With Moxie, we get stronger with every drop of blood gained. So much so that we crit his Piccolet and his Rybuzz. Next on the agenda is traversing Rock Tunnel, which, more than anything, is a complete waste of time. The only exception being when I caught a Charizard. Other than that, I mostly ran around in the dark and got assaulted by strangers. Usually Crunch would be enough, but if it was super effective, I'd use Sand Tomb. Like when I thought Sheltongue was an ice type, and it wasn't. It's a good thing I caught Charizard. I catch a Magmortar and we make our way to Celadon. I steal a girl's Blissey, which should be the least of her worries considering that the town is full of terrorists. Which reminds me, they're currently beating up an old man. Before we can save him, Kirby asked me to play a game of hide and seek in the cemetery. The thing he was hiding was his Nidorino, because this is the first time I've ever seen Pidgeotto fused with an orphan. The battle goes how you think it would, and I end up in the sewers with a hot girl. We flood Team Rocket with shit and find ourselves between Erica and a hard place. That place became soft and we saved Palpitoad. I could tell you how Erica's gym went, but once our pet crocodile grew wings, we started a wildfire and got our next gym badge. I then try to go down Cycling Road, get reminded that I never even got the bike, and now have to backtrack through half the region. Instead of going to the gym when I first arrived, I make a straight line for the Safari Zone. I find a Deoxys. It breaks through one ball and leaves. Mixed with frustration and disappointment, I decide to test my luck again, this time with Koga, which was almost a bad idea. I go for a dig on his Venomour, but it lives and does half my health in one Sludge Bomb. At that moment, I realize that Heat Wave wipes out almost his whole team, so I proceeded to do so. His Chinook wasn't much of a threat by itself, but the poison was. I go for Dig. Thankfully, I'm faster, and with the help of Type Advantage and Moxie, we win. Receiving our 6th badge would be nice, but we can't do that yet. Being 10, I showed up to save the day. I rescued 3 out of the 13 hostages, and entered what I believe to be one of the scariest fights in this run. Before this, I did attempts with level caps. I thought fun equaled hard, but no, not my preferred fetish, because the Tauros in this rival fight would fuck me over every single time. But I was almost level 50 and I thought I'd have a chance. Starting off with Flamethrower, we get a burn on his first Pokemon. This was extremely important, considering that it took half of our health like this. Next is his Drago Kiss, trying to finish the battle right after it started. We do some damage with Dragon Claw, and die to an Aqua Tail. I'm getting flashbacks. Keeping in mind that I'm not only picking a Pokemon from my rival, but also Giovanni and Sabrina, makes choosing who to pick a headache. After a while, I went with Luxray, because Electric had a good type matchup for all the Pokemon we're going to face. I trained for about half an hour to an hour, caught a Togetic, and finally felt ready to squish that little pink pocket pussy. I Thunderfang his Nidogeot, outrage his Dragokiss and Electados, I paralyze his Tauros, and get a fully paralyzed into crit. Starbra never had a chance. Level 60? A little excessive? Unnecessary? Nope, he deserved it. Kirby comes right back at us and joins the fight against Giovanni. This works heavily in my favor because he has a flying type and I know Earthquake. In the end, I Thunderfang paralyzes Tauros and it almost dies. Fuck you. Having defeated Team Rocket, I can now finally get Fly. Using Fly before would mean having to unfuse, but now we have access to the Goldenrod department store. When I get there, we beat all the workers, Wobbuffet plus anything probably looks good, go down the elevator and get the teleporter. Facing the Psychic Temptress might scare some, but I am not that weak, for I had a plan. Hit hard. We use Foul Play as an icebreaker, and she mistakenly uses Baton Pass, switching her Psychic Fairy with a Water type. I use Thunder Wave just in case, but Surf almost kills us, so I execute with Thunderfang. Espeon gets us low with Dark Pulse, so we move some tectonic plates for it to go down. We shatter her Genkazam like glass, and we cause another tremor to get her badge. Fusing Luxray was the best decision made in this run, but like all good things, we must kill it. We can't progress without Surf, and since neither Luxray nor Crocodile could learn it, that means we need someone who can. Being limited in choices, I pick my only water type, and if things go well, I can make it all the way to the Elite Four like this. Crossing the Mid-Atlantic, nothing of interest happens, but when I get to Cinnabar, I get my second chance. Pokemon Mansion, being a fairly tedious part of the game, only serves to give information about Mew and Mewtwo. So when a green sloth tries to attack you, it's pretty great. Breaking into the gym, we're then confronted with a series of questions. Question 1. A fusion between Charmander and Ponyta evolves at which level? 16. Question 2. Which of these Pokemon is not a Steel type? Nose Pass. Question 3. Which type is super effective against a Fire and Grass type Pokemon? Rock. Question 4. A fusion with Oddish as the body and Rhyhorn as the head would have which typing? I don't know. I got it wrong. Blaine warns us to have a burn heal, so I equip one. I'm hoping just to flood the whole gym with Surf, so I immediately get on that. It's enough to get through his first 3 Pokemon, and puts me in a good place against his 4th. Blaine, realizing he's down, goes for a Hail Mary and Confuse Ray. We hit ourselves in confusion, it does a lot, and then we're met with Fire Fang. Relying on a single coin flip to see if we live or not is not ideal, but as I have no other option, I call out for an Earthquake, only for it to land on Tails, and we lose. Looking at my box, I have 2 criteria for the next fusion. The first being that they have a custom sprite, and the second is that they are good for this gym and the next. The most obvious solution is Crocodile and Shelder, but even after evolving, it's just a quick Photoshop edit. I also considered Blissey and Slackoff, but I knew Giovanni had a fighting type, so I was still stuck. The only possible solution I had was to switch out Crocodile for Togetic. As much as it provided for us, the whole point is to have beat the game with 1 fusion, not Crocodile fusions. With gentle hands, I placed our strongest warrior to rest, and picked up our new champion. I headed to the department store to get a shiny stone. Not paying attention, I pass the guy who sells them, and go up the stairs, get caught by a random trainer, and die. I'm back where I started. I picked up Magmortar for something I know I can win with, and snub out Blaine's Flame. I go to my final gym, remember that I'm playing a ROM hack, and go all the way back. At one point, I found a Mewtwo, but ran out of balls. Splashing around in the water puddles, I caught a Bulbasaur and bumped into Team Rocket. They were putting things into Pokemon, and being someone with some amount of decency, I tried to stop them. This was before I realized how inexperienced I truly was. Articuno, Moltres, Zapdos, the 3 legendary birds of the Kanto region. How they meshed to be one, whether grafting or by other means, I'm not quite sure, but what I'm sure of is that I am currently being looked down on by Cerberus, and all I have is my Club Penguin OC. My first step was to confuse Zapdos. A wasteful effort it proved to be. Receiving a Thunderbolt and Tailwind made me realize that focusing on all of them was better than focusing on one of them. Surf by itself is almost enough to win the battle. However, another Thunderbolt from Zapdos is what resolves the conflict. The legendary threat laying within the core of Mount Ember is one that very few have a chance against. Surveying each possible alternative, there's only one clear choice: the pregnant Pokemon. Notice how the egg is at their feet like a true penguin. The fate of the Pokemon world rests in their hands. We set up a light screen, they use Reflect. I learned from my mistakes and use Surf to weaken all three of them. Another Surf is just enough to kill both Moltres and Zapdos. Instead of going for its last throw, I heal in case I missed and then got frozen. I get frozen, but the barrier I attached beforehand thaws us out. Finally, everything comes to an end when we overflow the base of Mount Ember with a turn of water, killing the last of the legendary trio and almost all of Team Rocket, except for one. Without trying, Surf alone is enough to turn a defeated man into a dead one. But this isn't what I wanted. Hard does not always equal fun, but this was easy. Extremely easy. The adversity that had shown itself up until this point was nothing I couldn't handle. In spite of that, if I continued like this, Blissey would have steamrolled the rest of the game. I can't, or maybe I won't restart the game, but I can change one thing. I turn off the game, turn it back on, and unfuse Empoleon and Blissey. My rule stated that I can unfuse in order to progress, and I was not going to progress like that. I chose Bulbasaur because Venusaur and Empoleon looked cool, and Water and Grass would be good for the gym. Our rematch breaks off similarly to how our first clash did. His Gochamp falls asleep only to wake up the next turn after surviving with Sturdy, and lands a dynamic punch. Worrying about my most recent endeavor, I have Emperor put its opponent to sleep, and heal with Synthesis. The other members of his team land some strong hits, but all was for naught as we claim victory once again. With our proud abomination of both water and grass evolving, I couldn't stop now. Being 30 levels above anything Kirby could spit out, we caused Nurse Joy to receive a flash flood warning and spam Surf once again. This works for most of his team until I realized that Emperor only had water type attacking moves. This became a hindrance when Kirby brought out his Drago Kiss. I used Sleep Powder to put it to sleep, but when it woke up, it stopped me from doing that again with Safeguard. Our water type moves barely made a dent. We died. Retreating to the PC, it was clear that whoever I chose would be the fusion to beat the champion. And with that in mind, I already knew who it was going to be. We trained, we fought, we conquered, and headed to the Pokemon League. 4 elite trainers and a pink deity stand in our way. 30 levels and a box of renewable resources behind me, our chances of losing were very low, but not impossible. Lorelite kicks things off with an already losing bet choosing Magong. It's able to get some damage in before feigning, so Empovar used Wish when Tintester came out. A few Psychics and Surf are enough to get it done. As for her Whereas, Mambro, and Jin Growth, they all fell victim to Moonblast. But if anyone stood a chance of smashing through our Iron Maiden, it would be Bruno. Alas, I chose my moves carefully, and was able to charge through his first 4 mistakes pretty handedly. His final fighter wouldn't go down so easily, and in a final gambit, used Sword Stance Close Combat. They were this close. Defeating Bruno meant that it was smooth sailing from here until Kirby. Agatha, being more of a nuisance than a threat, wasted both of her full restores on something that was already dead, then proceeded to use Inferno right after. That had a 50% chance of hitting. Remember, just because you're old doesn't mean you're wise. I didn't think Snorgar would put up as much of a fight as it did, as it was just a head with arms and legs, and although I was right, it killed itself to curse us. The move, and literally. Running into a Wobbuffet is the equivalent of running into an active minefield. You don't know what you stepped on, but odds are it's gonna blow you up. Wish takes a turn to activate, and when it does, it still isn't enough, so I use it again, only to be caught with Destiny Bond, making it so that if I kill Wobgar, I lose, no matter what. Stalling with Wish is my only option, since Destiny Bond ends in 2 turns. Meanwhile, Wobgar knows no offensive moves, so it just waits. After these 2 turns, our standstill will end, and one of us will die. My final wish fails. Alongside their Mirror Coat, I take curse damage. Agatha will use Mirror Coat, and I will use Moonblast. something each of us already know. The only question remaining is whether or not Moonblast will kill in one hit. As my back pressed against the Elite Four wall, I'd run out of time. Moonblast fails, and we succumb to Miracote. Just like many times before, choosing the next possible cannon fodder was harder than I imagined. I either couldn't get the typing I wanted, or when I did, they didn't look cool. I was ready to choose at random and over level, hoping it would be enough. Until a glimpse of hope. Empoleon did a lot, but I wanted to win. I needed a fairy type. Whether it was by fate or chance that I caught both a shiny Slackoth and a Gardevoir, and ended up needing to fuse them both to become champion, is something I'll never know, or care enough to understand. But it's convenient how its name is one letter off from Savior. We grind to 90 and get a better moveset. This feels all too familiar. I curb stomped Lorelei and Bruno, leaving them there for Monday morning with the rest of the trash, and as for Agatha, she sent out her Wobgar as soon as possible, and the only plan I can think of was Earthquake. Agatha only used Miracote, so if she didn't have counter, that meant I could hit her. I could hit her hard. Like a corpse trying to drag me down to the depths of hell with her, she used Destiny Bond. I stalled with Slackoff and left her there to rot. Now it was Lance's turn. I used Moonblast. It's time. One fusion, one region, and one final battle. I hope you're ready, Kirby. His Nidogeot goes down with one Psychic, but his Ripe Mortar won't be as easy. Although super effective, Earthquake can't kill because this is the hill that Kirby decides to die on. Full restore, and full restore. We get it down after 4 full restores. This battle was already over once I beat Agatha. He sends out his Dragokiss, a Pokemon who should have been a lot stronger. Sadly enough, that doesn't matter. With our jungle waifu immortalized on Professor Oak's PC, I think that answers the question of can you beat Pokemon Infinite Fusion with only one fusion? Yeah, it was pretty easy.